Our next guest on the Any Given Run Day podcast is a pilot turned endurance runner and an aviation entrepreneur who has podiumed numerous races, including the Kerryway Ultra and the Dublin Mountain Trail Running Festival. He is the fastest known time for running the length of Ireland and is gearing up for his biggest challenge yet. 4,000 kilometers across Australia starting this August. Jason Williamson, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I need you to write my CV because that's kind of the nicest summary of my life anyone has ever given me. So I need a few moments now to take all that in.
And wait until we add on Wall of Fame Any Given Run Day. Oh my God, it's going to be
epic. They're really filling this website, Eric. But welcome back on, Jason.
Jason, I wouldn't run across the road about 10 years ago. What we're going to get to what's making you run across Australia, but how did you find yourself going from a 5K to what it is you're doing now? And where does it start for you? And how did you get involved in running?
Yeah, well, I guess like as a youngster, I grew up in Australia. I grew up on a farm in the countryside, and I had two older brothers and a younger sister, and our whole childhood was just spent running around on the farm. So I've been just active since I was a kid. Running is something I did as a very young kid. Cross country sports was a big thing at school. I remember I was never front of the pack or anything, but I was always enjoying it. Kind of middle of the pack kind of guy. The big tall guys were always out in front, but I had fun doing that, and then I got into other sports as a teenager, a bit of rugby, quite a bit of surfing as well when we moved to the coast. But running was always that one sport that was my go-to, I guess, even when I was kind of studying at school and that type of thing. I'd come home from school and I'd go for a 5K run or something just to clear my head and get ready to study for the evening. So yeah, running's always been there. It's just been my default sport, probably because it's so easy. You know, I've had stints in gyms and things, but I don't know, that running is just nice. You get outside, you just need a pair of shoes and a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and you just go. So yeah, it's always been my default sport, but that's just short distance, I guess. I've never really got into running long stuff until I was into my 40s, actually. So all through my 20s and 30s, I was very career oriented, spent half my life in hotels around the world while I was flying. And so my default then was just hotel treadmills, running off hangovers, trying to keep the beer gut at bay, and that sort of thing. You know, there was never any kind of purpose, any higher purpose other than that, really.
You can't really do too much long running on a treadmill and a hotel. You only stay in there a certain amount of hours as well. I can't imagine right before this flight, I'm going to do 2-3 hours in the treadmill. But there must have been that point, Jason, where you said, right, 5-10Ks. They're not doing it for me anymore. Let's go a little bit longer. When did that happen?
So that happened probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. I was really busy with work. We'd been very busy for a few years setting up the company that I've now got, Six West. And so I'd just been living and breathing that kind of work around the clock, quite a bit of social drinking, almost no exercise for a couple of years. And I remember a few photos were taken of the group. And I looked at myself I was just aghast. I couldn't believe that I deteriorated so much in a few years, in my early 40s. And that kind of gave me a bit of a fright. It wasn't like a big wake up call. It was just just one of those, oh shit moments. I need to do something here. And so I started doing a little bit more running around. I started consciously making an effort to go running most days, which was really, really hard to start with, I guess. You haven't done anything for a few years and then all of a sudden you're running. But anyway, I built into it. We bought a treadmill at home here so that I could go running when it was raining and miserable outside, because back then I thought that I wasn't allowed to get wet when I went running. And
is that not fact? I'm still the same.
Most fair weather person.
I've learned since that the rain actually doesn't hurt you. But I was building up the mileage. I wasn't thinking ultra running. I wasn't thinking racing. I was just enjoying getting fit and healthy again the year or two before COVID. And then as COVID hit, we'd just gone out to Australia to visit my family. The country shut down and we kind of got stuck there. We could have come back here if we really wanted to, but we were quite happy there. Ireland got locked right down. In Australia, there was still a bit more movement. So we stayed there. We put the kids in school and I had a lot of time on my hands. and we were going through a company restructure, which was quite stressful. And I just found that I had a little bit of a fitness base, and all of a sudden I was outside every day and I was just running for 1 hour, then 2 hours and 3 hours. And I just found that the more I ran, the better I felt mentally. Obviously I got fitter, but I loved the way it cleared my head. And I just found that the longer I ran and the more kind of, distraction and noise that got stripped away from my life as I ran, my head became so clear. I was able to make good business decisions. I was able to make better decisions with the family. COVID was a very strange time for everyone, I guess. And so for me, I guess what drew me into that really kind of long endurance running was more of a mental outlet. It was just a place to go to find peace and to find a clear head. And then obviously just enjoy the benefit of getting fitter as well. And then I stumbled upon ultra running from that. I was at my friend in Australia. He's a chiropractor, and he said to me, there's a 100-kilometer race coming up in a few months just up the road here. Would you have a go at that? And I was like, no, there's no way I could run 100 kilometers. Where are you going? But he kind of planted the seed, and I went home and I kind of thought about it, and I started doing what everyone does. I jumped onto Google and I started looking at it. I realized, hey, this is a sport. People actually do this. This is a thing. So I started training for it, and I went out to the course where it was, which wasn't far from home, and trained on the course. And then, 3 or 4 months later, I went and I ran it. And that was my first exposure to ultra running and the sport and the community and the people and all the positiveness that goes with that. And from that moment, I guess I was kind of hooked.
It's amazing. A lot of people have them kind of moments where they look at it. I just want to bring it back to, I suppose, you're in quite a nice situation. You've both sides of the lifestyle, Australia and Ireland. And the age-old question that's on every 20 to 30-year-old's mouth is, why am I in Ireland? Why am I not in Australia? From a running perspective and a lifestyle perspective, what do you see as the major differences between the two? Obviously, there's benefits to both and there's niceties to both. But for you, what was the pull back to Ireland? Because you're setting up now, kids are in school, you're running outside, it's good, sunshine. What, other than business, I suppose maybe that is the answer. What are the key differences, and I suppose what draws you back to Ireland?
Well, I guess my wife is from here, from West Cork, where we live, down near Skibbereen. And I met her just over 20 years ago out in the Middle East. We were both working in Saudi Arabia. She was a nurse out there, and we met at a party one night. And within a few years, she kind of dragged me back here. So it was never part
kicking and screaming.
Yeah, it was never part of my master plan as a teenager. I never went to school telling my mates that I was going to move to Ireland when I grew up. And
throwing darts at the board, you wouldn't even hit it.
No, yeah. So I ended up here, and we built a house, we got married, we had kids, and the kids, at the beginning of COVID were like, the oldest back then was about 12. So they were established here, 3 kids. And so it was home here. Ireland was home. And for years, we'd just been going out to Australia, visiting my family once a year or once every 18 months or so. So it was it was never really a given that we were going to not come back here. We were always coming back here. Our house was here. So, actually one of the things that I remember because I really kind of upped the volume and was doing, that's when I sort of got into really serious training and running during COVID in Australia. I remember when we flew back to Ireland, it had been nearly 2 years we'd been away, and I was actually really worried that going back to Ireland would see me return to my old lazy ways, because we came back New Year's Eve, actually, I think we landed. So it was like the middle of winter. I just left summer in Australia where we had long days and beautiful weather and all that. And it was actually stressing me out for probably a month or two. When I knew we were coming back, it was on my mind that I thought, this is going to be the end of it. This is going to be where it all goes south again. And I just end up down at the pub every weekend. And then this will just be a distant memory, because that's kind of the pattern of my life has been to do something for a year or two and then fade away and come back and, just go up and down. And so when we landed in Ireland, we drove home here. And my wife took the kids down to my in-laws to say hi to them, and it was dark, it was nighttime. And the first thing I did was I just ripped open the suitcase and threw on my running gear, and it was pissing down rain outside, it was cold, and I threw my headlamp on and I just went for a run. And I just thought, right, that's it. I've got control of it again. Now I'm not going to let this bad weather, I'm not going to let the winter time and the cold wind stop me. So that was so it didn't stop, and I've been able to continue it for the last 4 years or so.
You just picked a further pub to run to, and then you disappeared for a few hours.
Jason, this 100-kilometer, your first race, this is not the Elephant Trail race, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Right. So just talk me through this for a second.
Sean has pictures and everything now. He's been on Google all day.
You need to clear your head. You're getting into long running. You need to clear your head. And you must need long runs to clear your head, because obviously when you're training for 100 kilometers, and Lord knows I need them, I had the legs for it, I wish I could do it. But when you're Googling, did you Google the time it would take to win the thing? Because you somehow managed to do that and come first place. And your very first ultra, you do 100 kilometers and you win it. Is that right? Yeah,
that was no discredit to anyone in the race, but it wasn't like a world trail major or anything, but it was still, I did win it. And I really, that really surprised me. I was shocked.
Well, your first 100K race, I mean, even the most egotistical there's not looking at going, I might be in to win this one,
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when I finished it, to be honest. But it was an interesting race. It was a 4-loop course, 27 kilometers per loop. So it was about 108K. And so you do the first 2 loops clockwise. And then when you leave the home base or the main aid station, the third time you turn around, you do the last 2 loops in the opposite direction. So it was interesting because I was with the lead pack for the first loop. And then I kind of pulled away a little bit, not intentionally. It just kind of happened. And then after that, once we changed direction, I was able to see where everyone else was. And it was
whistling
really
at them, giving them the fingers and all the way.
Yeah, this is my first time. Look at me.
I did. It was an amazing race. It was really hard. There was a lot of vert. There was about 6,000 meters of vert in that, and a lot of it was like really steep up and down, like scrambling over trees and boulders. So I was just in bits by the end of it. But yeah, I did finish, and I did amazingly win it. And I think that's perhaps that's one of the reasons I was kind of hooked as well, because I thought maybe I can actually do this in a half decent way. So, because I hadn't done any formal training for that, I'd kind of Googled a few, the theories of endurance training and the idea of doing a long run once a week, and mostly easy running with a couple of workouts. So I was kind of building my own, my own kind of training plan for that, but I obviously didn't put enough fast, hard downhill running into it, because I couldn't walk for about a week afterwards. My quads were just smashed.
That was going to be my next question. What did you learn most from that? What do you do now when you're training or running, and you look back then and looking through Google and all the rest, you're like, can't believe I had this approach to long distance running? Was it the downhill stuff? Was it strength training? Is there anything you're like, oh, I can't believe I approached this way?
Tired, aching muscles, and overworked feet?
Discover Ultra Pure Ice Cold Menthol Gel, your instant, fast-acting, and cooling savior.
Powered by menthol and boosted by arnica, rosemary, eucalyptus, and peppermint essential oils, it's a powerhouse of natural recovery.
Massage Ultra Pure Ice Cold Menthol Gel into your legs, arms, back, neck, shoulders, or our personal favorite,
Hey, easy, Sean.
feet, and feel the instant cooling sensation.
Grab a tube today. Your body will thank you.
Proudly made in County Mayo by an Irish-owned, award-winning family business, Ultra Pure blends quality, care, and value into every product.
Available in pharmacies and health stores nationwide, or shop online. Find out more at ultrapurelabs.ie or on our new website, anygivenrunday.com. Now, let's get back to this podcast.
Couple of things, I guess. Like, it was probably not long after that I got with a coach, an Australian coach, Andy Dubois. He's quite well known in the ultra scene. And when I kind of spent a couple of months after that race debating internally whether to get a coach or not, because I was like, there's pros and cons, that we all know that. It came down to, for me, it just came down to the fact that I was doing a lot of training. I realized that I really wanted to give this sport a good nudge for a few years while I could. and I was aware of the phrase junk miles, for want of a better term, although there's not really that many junk miles out there, but I was aware of it. And I didn't want to be, I found myself second guessing as I built my training schedule each week, thinking, should I do hills today, or should I do speed, or should I do this or that? And if I'm doing a speed session, should it be like 3 minutes or 5 minutes? And I just found there was so much, I was just second guessing myself so much. So I thought, right, I'm just going to get a coach. I'll try and find a coach that knows this sport so that I don't have to worry about that. He can just tell me every week what he wants me to do, and I'll just go and do it. And so that was a big change. So we put some structure to my training. We kind of periodized it over the year, based on what I was targeting, and that was great. And I've been with Andy for the last 4 years. So I chat to him each Monday, and he tells me what to do. He has all my data through Training Peaks. And so that's been a big thing. Strength training is another really big thing that started probably about the year before I did the Island Way. I just had a few ongoing niggles and things, sort of tendinopathy in the hamstring and a couple of ankle issues. They weren't huge things, but they were just niggles. So I got into strength training, and I found straight away those niggles just disappeared. So that was a really big thing for me. And I think the other probably main pillar to all this that I have changed since the beginning is the nutrition. The 6 or 8 months prior to the Island Way, I worked with Paul Booth. He's an ultra nutritionist over in the UK. He crewed me for a while on the Island Way, and we spent 6 months working on my nutrition, preparing for that. And so I learned so much in that time, just so much. I realized how little I actually knew about nutrition. And so that was key. So if I look back, it was probably, for me personally, it was getting a coach. It was strength training and nutrition. They've been really big things. Aside from that, just keep running every day. That's pretty much what I do.
It's one thing as well when you get a coach, but what you don't realize is not only are you now, okay, autopilot, just read the day, do what the day says, but you're also learning. You've learned what suits you. The coach has learned what suits you. Same with nutrition. You're learning because everyone is individual and not one size fits all, particularly when, okay, you can't even say it's one size fits all for a 5K. Never mind when we're talking the distances you're covering. So for you then, the education factor, was that another byproduct of a coach that you just didn't consider? When you're doing that debate, what should I be doing? Should that be something people should consider now when they're having this, toss up between, do I get a coach? Do I not get a coach? Is it good to learn from someone else?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much information out there, isn't there? It's
scary. It's terrifying.
And I mean, you can't learn properly on Google, and there's so many different training plans. And I found when you work with a coach, especially over a long period of time, the knowledge they build up about you, like the way they get to know you, that the conversations we have now are very different to the conversations we had 3 or 4 years ago. Andy can tell now, very, very quickly how I'm feeling and what's going on. Most of it through the data and my just post-training run reports that I might stick into Training Peaks. So we don't spend much time talking about a lot of the stuff that we used to talk about. And some days there's very little to talk about. It's just another week. It's up there. You're feeling good. Let's just keep chipping away. We don't have to dissect every run and every week. We don't have to dive into your feelings. And, if you're feeling good and strong, let's just keep chipping away. So, but you do learn a lot. I learned a lot with Andy, especially around the topic of pacing, ultra marathons, and that type of thing. It's one thing to train for them, but then I guess anyone who's done any ultra marathons, and the more they do it, the more they realize they probably screwed up their first with their pacing and that type of thing. So I've learned a lot around pacing, about being patient, and just trusting, just learning to, if you're with a good coach, you learn to trust them. So there's very little second guessing. If anything, Andy, he kind of probably just protects me from myself, because I know there's times when I'm feeling strong and I'm feeling good and I could probably do a bit more this week, but he's like, no, there's no need. There's no need. Look where we are. You're still 8 weeks out, 9 weeks out. So yeah, it's very personal too, I guess, isn't it? Because you do coaching yourself, don't you?
I do a small bit of coaching now. A lot of strength conditioning kind of work, not too much kind of running stuff, just run myself. But
right.
A lot of gym work, that kind of thing on my end would be. But it does get very personal sometimes with clients and stuff, and they are kind of putting their health and stuff in your hands and stuff, and especially when they got big goals like the goals you have there, you don't want to let them down that kind of way. So it will get very personal.
Yeah, totally.
I just
You
need someone
talk.
to save me from takeaways and beers, Jason.
That's why I don't coach him.
If I can just lock myself away from myself, then that'd be good. But that's probably why I keep running long distance.
Jason, you talk about being patient there and pacing. Well, how did you go about talking to Andy about your goal of running 1,038 kilometers in the time you did the fast known time run the length of Ireland, 14 days, 9 hours, 26 minutes, and 23 seconds? How do you go from 100K to like literally 10 times that amount? Like the training, is it that just load up the mileage? When you talk to Andy about that, like how did that conversation go and how was that training leading up to that event?
Yeah, I spent about, I don't know, at least probably 3 months just spinning that whole journey around in my head before I even raised it with Andy because I just thought it was so harebrained. I almost felt embarrassed telling him that I was thinking about it because I was like, just tell me that there's no way I can do that. Like, just tell me I'm dreaming and we'll get back to normal races. So I floated the concept to him and he wrote back and said, yeah, he said you can do that. He said physically there's no question. It's up to you mentally how much you want to do it. And then when I got chatting to him, he told me he coached whoever the runner is that has the current record for running the circumference of Japan, and he's coached the lady who holds the current New Zealand record for running the length of New Zealand. So he was no stranger
Oh,
to
wow.
these long distance kind of things.
He was
So
pushing you to do it so he could add another country onto a scratch map. There you go. That's another one for the map.
that's right. Yeah. But it just it really didn't come down to pacing. Like it was weird. If you're planning for a 100K event or a 100 mile or something, you got a pretty good idea of how you're going to go at it. What's the plan? But this one was more about, just getting through each day. Obviously, you'd go out a lot slower than you would for one event because, you do the 100K and you crash on the couch at the end for a few days and don't move and you recover. But trying to do that and then finish in time to get enough sleep to wake up the next day and do the same thing again. That's just a total unknown, I think, for everyone, for anyone, because it is just unknown, and everyone will handle that so differently from one day to the next as well. So we just talked about taking it easy and prioritizing rest. Rest became and that kind of, I made a little mistake there in the first few days because rest kind of went out the window because the first few days were quite mountainous. So the 100Ks was a bit slower. So I was finishing quite late at night. But we did talk about it. It doesn't mean I stuck to it, about getting a minimum amount of time at night in bed, because really it came down to obviously running really slow and taking it easy and stopping and eating a lot. But it was about how much rest can you get at night, because it's that recovery that is going to help you get up the next day and do it again. So yeah, pacing kind of went out the window. Like I said to a couple of people joined me on day one out of Castletown Beara, and I said to them, like, don't expect to be going for a 100K run with me. It's going to be really slow. We'll do some running.
Yeah,
There'll
yeah.
be plenty of stops. There'll be some, if there's any of the uphills up over the Beara Peninsula, so we'll be walking those. I'm not going to be trying to run up those today on day one. So yeah, pacing is completely different. Just always trying to check in with yourself about how you're feeling now, and based on that, how do you think you're going to feel this time tomorrow? And how do you think you're going to feel in 3 days' time as well? Because you know what it's like when you're running and you're feeling good, you're kind of feeling invincible. You might have just had a big half a bottle of Coke or a good bit of food and it's gone down well, and you've got a tailwind and the birds are chirping and you kind of feel great. So you pick up the speed a little bit. And that's all good for about 10 minutes. And then about a half an hour later, you go, man, I shouldn't have done that. So I just it was just a constant exercise in self-discipline. And even when you're feeling good, just staying slow. Because so there was no magic kind of, we weren't aiming for a pace. And if you look at my Strava over that event, like the pace just varied so much anyway, because it was probably about 60% trail and 40% kind of country road. So there was some running and there was some hiking and there was crawling through hedges a few times as well and running away from cows who were chasing us across fields and stuff. So there's all sorts of paces.
When we look at events, so some people, a 5K right now is the scariest thing they can take on. A marathon is inconceivable. Did this scare you at all? When we talk about mentality, because you just went 100K over 6,000 elevation, what did this event do to you when you signed up? Did you go, this scares me, I'm interested? Is that what drove you towards that? Is it the interest level of how far can I go, or how did you feel when you were standing down there on the peninsula and you're like, wow, this is gonna be a long day?
Yeah, you mean at the beginning of the Island Way?
Yeah. What was
Yeah.
it that scared
It
you about
was,
it, or did it
yeah,
all?
I was, I, at the beginning, I think I'd kind of come to terms with it, but in the months leading up to it, every time I thought about it, I got scared when I was out running. You train for these big races that you know are going to take, 15 or 25 hours or something. And you go out and you do like a 3 hour long run, and 2 hours into it, you're feeling like crap and you're thinking, how am I going to do this like in a month from now? But somehow you do. Somehow it all
Yeah.
comes together, and the brain is just so powerful there, I think, isn't it? The brain knows where to limit itself, and it knows on race day it's just got to go. But but this thing was a bit different because I knew it was just going to go on for days and days and days. And like a lot of my training in the months leading up to it were just focused on like I listened to it and read quite a bit about just mindfulness and staying in the present, because I think that's something that's really been good for me personally with running. Anyone who's known me for a long time knows that I tend to go like a bull at a gate with anything that I start trying to do, and that's great for a little bit of time, but then it's not good for endurance sports, because that we all know where that ends up. And I think that's why, like, for years I just do like 10Ks was kind of my limit on the treadmill, or 10Ks outside, and I'd get to 10Ks and I'd just be completely ruined. And it wasn't until I got into endurance running I realized I was ruined, because every run I did was like a tempo run. I was out there I
Yeah.
was so so for me it was about patience. It was about being present and just learning to stay in the moment. And I spoke to a lot of people. I read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts about being mindful and not getting ahead of myself. And when I say that, like, not even thinking about an hour from now, but just getting right down to the footsteps and my breathing, and really focusing on that. And that was hard for me to do, because I'm not a natural meditator or a mindful kind of guy. But what I have found in the last few years with the running, it's my ability to stay in the present and be mindful has really improved. And I think a run like the Island Way, it had to be at a certain type of level, because it would be very easy to become overwhelmed if you let the big picture kind of come at you all the time. So I was constantly just focused on the present. Like, for example, I downloaded so many podcasts and albums to play on that run. And as it turned out, I didn't put my earphones in once running across Ireland. I was just, I didn't want to. I was just enjoying the sound of the birds and the sound of the footsteps on the road. And I had no desire to kind of crowd my sensory system with anything external. I was just focused on the moment. And I practiced that in the months leading up to the Island Way on not just long runs, but any run. I just go out and I just focus on the breathing. And I realized at one point during that period that my my previous attempts to focus on breathing hadn't worked, because when I'd focus on breathing, I'd try to control my breathing. And once I realized that I didn't have to control it, I just had to just observe it, just focus on it and observe it. It wasn't about, breathing out longer and breathing in longer and holding your breath. And it's just like, just allowing your focus to be on that cycle, the breath cycle. For me personally, it was a game changer, and it has been ever since. It's just something I default to now when I'm running. So yeah, lining up there, with a couple of weeks of running across Ireland ahead of me, that morning I felt really peaceful. Actually, I was excited. I was really excited. There's so many unknowns, and I was the first one to admit there was no guarantee I'd get to the end. But it was just the whole, I guess, the anticipation of adventure, not knowing how you would go, and I was also looking forward to just the exploration of Ireland, like moving across the country on foot, doing the whole length if everything went well. So yeah, just complete excitement. Would have been very easy to be overwhelmed, but thankfully on that day I wasn't. Yeah.
I could spend the rest of this podcast talking about just that race alone. But before we get into your big challenge, what time of year was this? I'm assuming this was like in like summertime where you had most daylight hours and stuff like that doing this around June, July, something like that. You did the um
Yeah, yeah.
when you finished, at what point when you finished till you got home, till you sat down, did you say, feck it, Kerryway Ultra's coming up. I put the miles in the legs, 200k. Let's hit this at the start of September and go for it. Because no, your Six West of Aviation are a big part of that now. Did you know you're going to do the Kerryway Ultra straight after this? Or are you like, I don't know how my body's going to hold up? And talk me through that.
Yeah, I think I had like, I started 2nd of June, ended mid-June. I think I had like 10 weeks or something from when I finished to when the Kerryway was starting. And I couldn't walk for the first week after. When I got to Ballycastle, the last few days I'd picked up like an infection in my small toe, which had changed my running gait, which had created like a shin splint, and my right ankle had just swollen massively. So the last day of that run was the most painful of the whole trip, and which was a shame because I only had 70k that day. So I was like, 70k along the coast. It's the last day. It's going to be fun. But it was honestly the worst day of all. I had 20k to go, and I was thinking I'm going to need another day to do this. I could barely walk. But so when I got to the end, yeah, my leg was a mess. So yeah, I remember talking to I remember my coach Andy. We were talking the next day or 2 days later about it, and
He's
he
still
said,
scratching his map, saying, "Well done, Jason.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. What's next?
I need another runner, another country now."
Yeah, he was saying you probably should take a couple of days off running, and I was like, I need more than a couple of days, Andy.
At least 2 months.
Yeah, but the swelling came down really quickly, and so I got on. I don't bike, but I've got like a little bike with the kids here, so we're riding around here locally with the 2 boys and getting a bit of fresh air. Like a week later, and it might have been like 10 or 12 days later, I went for a little hobble/walk. And within a few days, I was able to do very small runs. But the biggest thing for me was the brain fog. I was just mentally, I was just all over the place. I'd just fall asleep in the middle of the day, and I'd be talking, and then I'd just kind of forget what I was talking about for a bit. And I guess that happens a lot anyway with me. But
You had extra excuses that week.
Yeah, it seemed to happen more then. And that mental fatigue was really deep, I think. And that took me by surprise. So we got back into the running. We knew the Kerryway was coming. And I said to Andy, I would like to have a crack at one of the events, but I really don't know if I'm going to be able to. So we just decided that we didn't have to worry too much about fitness. We just had to get the legs turning when it was time to do that. And so we just felt really slowly into it. And I think I might have had like 2 weeks in that 10 weeks where I did some proper training, maybe like, the 2 to 4 week period out from the race. And it was at the last minute I decided to go for the 200K, not the 100K. I was actually going to do the 100, but then I was probably going through one of those moments where I felt good, and I said, screw it, I'll go for the 200.
That tailwind does awful things to you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I lined up for that, and I honestly had no idea how I was going to go. Like I knew that I could, I knew that I could do 100K. I knew I'd get to Waterville. I didn't know how my legs would hold up. I didn't know how my mind would hold up, because I knew there were parts of my brain still screaming at me for lacing up to even try that race. And so that was a real experiment. I went out with zero expectations. I said, I'll just forget the front of the pack. I'm just going to enjoy this. I had my big run a couple of months ago, so this is just something to go and enjoy. So that's what I did. I just went out, and we got like to Glen Carr, and I think I was probably round about 20th or something like that. I knew there were a whole bunch of people in front of me, and it didn't bother me. I was just like, this is cool. I'm enjoying this. My body's holding together. But then by the time we got to Waterville, someone said that we were coming second. And I was like, what? What? So we've
got a race.
we thought we better. I was running with Michael Dowling. I don't know if you know him, but we tried to shake each other all night. Like we were just, he'd take off, and then I'd catch him, and then I'd take off and he'd catch me, and we went back and forth for hours. Just before Waterville, probably 2 hours before Waterville, all through Waterville, round to Carr Daniel, into Sneem, into Temple No, and then we were on our way into Kenmare, and one of us, it had been on my mind for a while to have a conversation with him about this, and I'm pretty sure I brought it up, or he might have brought it up. I was delirious by this point. One of us said, "Look, we're going to kill each other. Why don't we just get each other to the finish line?" Because we were both we couldn't break each other. We were just kind of there. So we resolved to do that. And I know there's been a few comments since then. It's like, these guys didn't race, they helped each other to the finish line. But I could honestly say that I wouldn't have, the Kenmare to Killarney section, that took us a long time. It would have taken me a lot longer if I didn't have Michael there pulling me. Like he seemed to get a burst of energy then, and it was all I could do to keep up with him. And then talking to him after the race, he was saying there were moments before that if I wasn't there, he would have been walking, and because I was running, he was running. So we just kind of, we fought each other, we played off each other, and we used each other's strengths to drag each other to the end. And then we crossed the line together in equal second. So. And we made a pact with each other that none of us would sprint in the last 100 meters.
Was a thought there, Jason?
It's like robbing the cash at the end of the game. It's like, I swear I won't take it.
Can you imagine?
I'd leave you with nothing, Jason. Not even your underwear. I'd take it all.
Yeah.
Were you tempted? Were you a little bit tempted?
I'm sure it crossed our minds, but by then we were just so exhausted. We were like, whatever. And I think I said to him, just go. I don't care, man. Just go. You take it. He's like, no. Yeah, we were just so exhausted by that point that. So that turned out really well. I was quite surprised at that. I was surprised the body and mind held together for that long.
We have a thing where myself and Sean both agree a 5K best effort. We would choose probably fifth of things to do. Like a marathon would probably be ahead of a 5K best effort. Given the distances you're covering, now I know it was 10 weeks after, so it's very different circumstances, but if you're given the choice between 1,000 miles across one of Andy's scratch map destinations versus a 100-mile race, which are you leaning towards? Would you rather be competitive and quicker, or was that experience of 2 weeks of just you time, if you were to take out the infection and the pain, which is part of the experience, something that you add to you, but which would you choose? Has 100K become your 5K?
Looking to recover faster, train harder, and perform better?
And then what?
Perform Nutrition is one of Ireland's leading sports nutrition brands with a number of great tasting protein powders, a range of vitamins, as well as other supplements such as creatine. All products are made in the GMP facility in the west of Ireland, and they have a range of batch tested and informed sports certified products. Perform is trusted by a number of Olympians, High Rocks champions such as Sean Noble, he was in the podcast.
Yeah, right, he was.
Also CrossFit Games athletes such as Emma McQuaid and many more. Perform's goal is to offer the highest quality, best tasting nutrition products for competitive prices. And now you can get an extra 25% off all products with the code AGR on their website, performnutrition.com.
25%? I'm typing it in now. And don't forget, we are supporting Irish companies. You are supporting this podcast by listening to this advert. So support Irish, get behind your podcast and get behind your local businesses. And until then, let's get back to the podcast.
Well, if someone said to me there was only one more event left in my life that I could do and I had to choose it, then I think I would choose the cross country multi-day journey. But it would be a hard choice because the last year I did the Kerryway 100K and I loved that. I really enjoyed that. That was so much fun. And I look back at last year at that race and it was just a hoot. So they're two very different things, that's over so fast, it's a bang, it's over. You take off it as the sun's setting and then you're sitting in Killarney for breakfast, it was just, I couldn't believe it. But the multi-day long distance thing, I don't know, there's something really special about that. I think it's kind of life-changing, that feeling of when I got to Ballycastle after experiencing so many doubts along the way, big serious doubts that I might not make it. I spent a day in hospital on day 5 or something in Ballinasloe, and it was just full of ups and downs. And I think one of the really big things for those kind of events is the team. It's the crew around you. It's the memories you build with the team. And that's so cool. You have crew, when you have crew on these ultra runs, that's really cool as well. But when you're spending days and days with them, and they're seeing you go through days of being low and then days of being high, and they're cooking your meals and they're putting you to bed and they're doing everything for you. Like, it's really humbling, actually. It was a really, really humbling part of that journey. Crossing Ireland was the way that people had to look after me and the way they did look after me. It was something I hadn't really contemplated until I hit those low spots where I was just completely useless to myself. So I think I guess the experiences are probably just, for me anyway, there's a little bit richer. They're deeper and they're richer, and they're sort of, and that's not kind of writing off the memories I've got from races either, which have been awesome. But yeah, there's just something really profound about doing it day in, day out, always knowing that you might not make the end. And the only way you're going to get through the morning is to work with your crew and to break things down into that half of the day and not think about the next 10 days that you've got to do, that type of thing. It was, yeah. So if I had a choice just to do one, it would probably be the cross country one again. Yeah.
To Eric's point, I saw you talk about the Kerryway night, and you're like, the 100K, there was no time to stop or talk to people or stuff. It was go, 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 rest. I'm like, I took rest during Dunedin 50K at every loop for a minute or two and talked to the crew. I'm like,
Sean nearly rested that long. He nearly clocked out every time.
Oh, it's funny.
So
That's
I can
funny.
see how you treat it as like a 5K sprint. It's for us to that 100K for you.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because I remember on that 200K after the Island Way, I said to myself at the Ed Payne was crewing me. Yeah, I don't know if you know Ed, but he's known up in Kerry there. I said to Ed, I don't want to sit down at any aid station. If I sit down, I'm probably going to stop. So from the start line, the next time I sat down was when we crossed the finish line. So and it didn't occur to me until I got to the finish line and I kind of sat down on the ground. That was the first time I'd sat down since we started. So I find that if I sit down for too long, especially in the nighttime when it's cool, my hips freeze up and you get out of the chair and it takes you a kilometre or two just to start running properly again. You're kind of hobbling and just completely frozen up, especially when you're tired, in the second half of that race. So I just find the best thing is I just stand there, swap bottles out, have a bite to eat, keep the legs kind of moving, and then just trot off. It suited me.
Jason, your last day of the Ireland Way, hobbling 70K, felt like you wanted to break it down to 2. You said you spent a day in hospital. You said you couldn't walk for a couple of days afterwards. For that 1,038 kilometers, where's 4,000 in Australia? What part of your brain goes, do you know what? 4 times that distance, 2 marathons a day for 50 days or so. Let's go. Why? How? When? Because I was looking back at your Instagram. This seemed, I could be totally wrong on this. You seem to talk about a few posts like you knew you were going to do this, but you weren't quite announcing it yet. You were going to do this. I don't know if that's because you wanted to wait everything to line up, or you weren't so sure, or talk me through that and how this all came about.
Like you could just wear a stand-up desk, Jason, like normal people. If you hate sitting down that much.
I feel bad sitting down on mine right now.
A lot of time not sitting.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I did put a few kind of cryptic posts out there because I knew what I wanted to do, but I just kept telling myself it was just bloody stupid. Who posts stuff like that, and until I really was like, yeah, I was playing with the idea for so long, for months actually, and probably since the best part of last year, I knew something was going to be on the cards for 2025, but I wasn't sure what it was, and I kind of daydreamed about a lot of stuff, but yeah, Australia, it's one of those things that I've put out there I'm going to do. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I'll tell you at the end how I got it done, but we're just kind of, again, breaking it down. And I've made it a little bit easier on myself because I'm not aiming to do 100K a day. I thought the 2 marathons, 84K a day will be a little bit easier. I know which sounds a bit silly, I know, but I know when I was running Ireland that that last 20K each day was so tough. It was so tough. And additionally, Australia's, apart from a few hills here and there, it's mostly flat. So it's going to just be pounding it out on the side of the road flat. It's not trail running. Ireland was tough. There was a lot of vert in it. There was a lot of trail running. There was a lot of stile hopping and hedge hopping and running through fields and avoiding potholes and going through waist high grass for kilometers on end sometimes. So it was kind of, this will be completely different. I could be wrong, but I think getting through that mileage each day will be a little bit easier than doing it on the Island Way. The big thing is obviously just how long it's going to take. It's going to take 40 to 50 days. So there's a lot of uncertainty there about whether my body will hold together, whether my mind will hold together. But it's one of those things too that I won't know until we do it.
Well, I'm guessing you didn't have too much objection from Andy, who was looking at a whole continent now, and he was like, "Yeah, yes, baby." He was like, "Yes, 50, 60 days. I don't care. Get going, Jason." But
that's right.
Again, when we look at this, and I'm just trying to get perspective, we've 1,000 miles. We've obviously 4 times that now. Is preparation still roughly the same? And it's just a case of how long your endurance can go, how much the body can adapt. Because at some point, there is no training. At a point, there's no more training you can do. Is it all just relying on nutrition and adaptation that the body will keep going and keeping the mind strong?
Yeah, totally. I mean, as you know, you can't, it's not like you can triple your training volume just because you're doing a run like that. So the actual physical training part hasn't changed much. It's all road running for me at the moment on the side of the road. So I haven't been on the trails for a few months, and I probably won't because I don't want to go out and roll an ankle now. But yeah, it's, physically you just we're sticking to the same kind of program. We'll see. I'm about 18 weeks out now. So we're kind of bearing in mind that maybe around May time, I might be able to just ramp up the volume a little bit, put a little bit of extra load on things. We might try and do 2 or 3 days in a row of long runs and then keep the rest of the week really light just to try and mix things up a little bit. But physically, yeah, it's all, it doesn't make sense, does it? When you look at what you train and then you think, well, I'm going to go and do that. It's kind of like, well, how does that happen? But somehow it does happen. But yeah, a focus on nutrition again now. And a huge thing I think is rest and stress. I think they're 2 really big things that I know I probably underestimated for a long time, but I've become really aware of it in the last couple of years. Like for recovery, you put in it's one thing to put in all the training, but if you aren't recovering with good nutrition and then good rest with low stress, a lot of that training just goes to waste. So I think managing stress is a really, really big thing, for all of us. We've all got real lives outside of our little running hobbies, and there's real stress in there as well. So as I've been told over the years, we've only got one stress bucket, and every bit of stress goes into that. It's not just physical training stress, but your family stress, your work stress, everything goes in there. And when it's full, it's full. So
I'm going to feel very soft about asking this question, but I do have a question to ask you on top of it. I remember, not December gone, December before that, I did this Christmas challenge. Now we're talking about miles smaller, a lot smaller than what you did, but it was like 1 kilometer on day 1, 2 kilometers day 2, 3 kilometers day 3, etc. So when I got to everything going around Christmas, I got to 14, 15, 17 and trying to get 20, 21, 22. It was very tough to do that and to do stuff with work and do stuff with meeting people and all the rest. And I found that because I put so much for me into running, it was an hour, 2 hours a day. It kept building up. I found it very hard near the end to juggle a load of things. Like it was Christmas Eve stuff going on, and I was like, shit, I need to get 24K in for this to get done. 23 was very hard for me to do. You put up a post there very recently, it was yesterday. It was like, keep trying, but keep failing at juggling family, work, life, training, and managing stress. How, and I'm talking about Mickey Mouse stuff, 300 kilometers over 24 days. You probably do that in a week, the way you have to train for this thing. How do you juggle the whole thing and not, they talk about the stress and stuff there, and it's not like you have a job, you're an entrepreneur on top of things, your family, how does that all come together for you?
Well, mostly it doesn't come together. It's just
So Sean, you are soft. Thanks for your answer, Jason. So that's it for this week's episode of the
It's just a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just every day is different. Like, and just one eye on the clock all the time. And you, like you said, you go running, but you know that you've got to be back at 10:30 for a meeting, but you know that the run has to end. You've got to have a shower. You've got to eat something. It's not like you can run in the door and be on the phone, 30 seconds later. So that's what I find. Like even a 90-minute run, it takes 2.5 hours of your day up by the time you get ready for it. And by the time you kind of wind down from it at the end and get back into real stuff. So yeah, it's just a complete juggle, always juggling, always trying to think 2 or 3 days ahead. And that's and in amongst all that, trying not to get stressed about it. Like, cause it's even like the next few days, I'm thinking of that and I'm thinking of work, and it's very easy to go, how am I going to get it done? Because there's just so much crap to deal with. And again, just come back to the moment. Like I got today done. I made it to the 7 p.m. podcast with you guys. I'll get that done. I'll get to bed. And tomorrow I'll just get the morning. It's just like breaking everything down constantly.
It'll take about 4 hours to come down from the high of this now, Jason, to be fair. You might get a sleep tonight.
That's right.
From the family perspective, what is it like for them? Because we know the toll it can take on our other halves or for us going to support others. And now we get great enjoyment out of it. Don't get me wrong. It's very enjoyable. Others might not agree. How do you find it from the family perspective? Obviously, you have kids looking at you doing these great things, endurance, pushing your body, pushing your boundaries, and still maintaining your family life. How do you find their support when you look at a challenge like Australia? Because it's a big thing. It's one of the big question marks when we put out there, we're going to do a run there. Everyone thinks, oh, who has what on that day? What football match is on? Where's the Williamson taxi going on Saturday morning? So what way does it work in terms of balancing the family life?
That was one of the biggest challenges, actually. Once I kind of decided I really wanted to do this, it was like, well, when are we going to do it? How can we do it? Like, because we had like the weather factor to kind of, plan around. We don't want to do it in the middle of summer in Australia because that just wouldn't work with the heat. So then we looked at, just kind of the windows of opportunities, and then you throw in the kids' schooling, the summer holidays, and all that stuff. And I didn't want to be gone from here for 2 months while they're on summer holidays. Like July and August would be the nicest time to do it down there because they are the 2 coolest months to be doing it. So we ended up kind of working on August and September. The 2 boys will be home from school for June and July as well as August. So I'll get 2 months with them in June and July. My daughter will be home for July. And I will be gone for August, which is kind of a sacrifice over the summer. And by the time September comes, I'll be back in school. So yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, you want to do something like this, something's going to give. So it also kind of aligned with my birthday as well, which was more of a coincidence. Once we sat down and did it, we realized, well, if I did it in that time, then the ending of the run is kind of the last week of September, which is my birthday, which kind of works out well. So we kind of nailed that on the wall and worked backwards from there. But yeah, it's not, there's always going to be a victim to this kind of sacrifice, isn't there? It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. So
it's not just a birthday, though, right?
No, it's my 50th. So
that's a long way to go for a few pints, Jason.
That's incredible. Some people for their 50, they just go for a night out or something. That is phenomenal. Before we wrap it up, I'm conscious of taking up too much of your time here now, Jason. You've talked to Feb on your Instagram about, different, obviously you've talked about your why here, but you're talking about raising awareness and stuff for mental health, and you seem to have a lot of interesting conversations, I suppose, for lack of a better term now, with people on different charities and stuff you were thinking about doing this for.
Yeah, so like when I look back at the Island Way, and we raised funds for Temple Street Children's Hospital, that was a really personal experience because they helped save our son's life years ago. And I look back at that story and how we did it. There were a lot of learnings, and I've had a lot of people say to me since then that they felt like the Island Way was an opportunity lost to tell a bigger story because I wasn't really into social media and I wasn't really an active kind of user of it. So what we've done this year is I've had lots of people encourage me, and I've just decided to screw it. I'll just push the comfort zone on everything, including getting my face onto social media, because that's not my natural habitat. It's not where I feel most comfortable. So we thought, well, we're tying the company. Six West has my backing with this too. So there's people in the company who are much smarter at this stuff than me, and they're helping me with the social media side. And we thought, well, let's yeah, it's nice to do a run like this across the country for your 50th birthday, but it has to be more than that. I want it to be for something a little bit more than just me running. It seems a little bit kind of narrow-minded. So we put a thing out there recently on Instagram about what charities meant a lot to people. And yeah, basically it was almost unanimous. Everyone got back and talked about mental health charities. And we figured, well, I'm in Ireland. My family's Irish. I'm half Irish. It's going to be running in Australia. It makes sense to do two charities. We'll do one in Ireland and one in Australia. And so this week we're just in kind of the final stages of kind of pairing up with a couple of charities, which will be really cool. So we'll have it'll be good because people in Ireland will have something they can kind of focus on supporting if they want to, and people down in Australia where the action's happening will have something as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that side of it. When I ran across Ireland, it surprised me the fact that I was doing it for Temple Street helped me on so many occasions, a lot more than what I imagined when I started that run. I had no idea that it was going to impact so many people because I was raising money for Temple Street Children's Hospital. The amount of people that came out on the road and met me and talked about an experience they or someone in their family had with Temple Street, might have saved someone's life in their family or looked after someone at some point in their lives. They've had such a massive impact across Ireland and so many families. And that really blew me away, and it really helped me get through a lot of the tough times on the Island Way. So I'm hoping the same thing might happen with this run as well.
I suppose everyone has a why. I suppose you have yours, and everyone needs that. And we see it. We did the Dublin half marathon last weekend, and as we're recording this now, and you see people running with t-shirts with pictures of people on them. You see people going for a charity. You see people pushing people in wheelchairs. Everyone has that earning for running, but I suppose when you're doing it, it's some people. It's that extra why. It's that extra meaning that gets you through these long events. And I've no doubt, no matter what one you pick, considering it's mental health, and we're talking about raising awareness about mental health, you're going to be in your own head for a very long time, 40, 50 days of processing everything that's gone on. You're looking back nostalgically over 50 years as you're running in, and that's ultimately what it's going to end up being. It's going to be, Jason, this is your life as you get to the last couple of 100 kilometers. Is that going to be a surreal experience, given your experience with what you think of and what you do? And well, obviously it was 2 weeks or so in Ireland, and you're aware of what that's going to do mentally. How are them last couple of days going to be? Is that something you're anticipating?
Yeah, sometimes I think about that, and I know that the feelings I had when I ended the Island Way, I got quite emotional, and I wasn't planning on that. I wasn't expecting that. And so I know, probably a similar thing might happen. And it's nice to know that, because although it's a long way away, it's one of those things that might just help you pull you through some of those moments too, when you wonder what the hell you're doing out there, maybe on day 25 or something, and questioning everything about the run. Just knowing that feeling at the end, if it's anything like what I experienced at the Island Way, it'll make it all worth it. Yeah.
Jason, where's the best way people can follow your journey between now and you setting off on, I think it's August 8th, is it? August, do I have it in front of me? August 8th,
Yeah.
or August 7th?
August 7th is the plan. So yeah, what we'll do, we're going to have a videographer along the whole trip with us as well, which is really cool. We've just signed up with him this week, and so he's going to be filming every day and we're hoping like a high quality reel at the end of each day, summarizing each day, and then perhaps like a YouTube summary at the end of each week. And that'll be on my Instagram at Jason Williamson Ultra. That's going to be the main platform. And yeah, YouTube will be there as well. But I think the Instagram will take everyone to YouTube whenever there's something goes up there as well. So our plan is I really want to tell the story this time, because we made a small effort when we did the Island Way, but nothing compared to what we want to do this time. There's going to be a much larger team in the background trying to capture this story, which I think will be cool.
Is this a first, or is this a fastest known time attempt, Jason, or what are we looking at in terms of the route? Is kind of my last question, so people can have invested interest.
Like the regular route that a few people have done is Perth to Sydney. So I'm doing Perth to Port Macquarie, and Port Macquarie is like a few hours drive north of Sydney. It's only because that's where my family is and kind of where I spent my teenage years. I'd like to finish on the beach there. So my particular route hasn't been done, but the Perth to Sydney, which is the same distance, it's within 100K of each other. The record there was set in 2023 by a Sydney guy, Chris Turnbull, and he ran it in 39 days. So he did 100K a day for 39 days.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't have any kind of formal, I'm not going to stand out and say I'm going for the record or anything like that, but I'll be pushing myself as hard as I can as well.
I just can't get over it. I can't wrap my head around it. I'm looking at the route here beside me. I'm not very unfamiliar with Australia and stuff, but I do know a lot of it in the middle is not really habited by a lot of people. Like I'm like, I can't make head nor tail of just how insane this challenge is going to be. Not to put you off or anything like that, but just 4,000 kilometers is batshit crazy. Is the only thing that's coming to mind right now. But absolutely, best luck with Jason Williamson. I can't wait to see your journey on Instagram when it's nice and warm over here now, and hopefully during the summer. Never did this challenge. It is class what you're
doing.
Long
way. It's an unimaginable distance. Like Dave Keane in Dublin, he's going to be my crew chief on this, and he sent me a picture yesterday. He's building spreadsheets and checklists in the background right now, and getting a crew together and doing all the logistics with me. So we're communicating every day. He sent me a photo yesterday that he found on Google Maps across the Nullarbor Plain where it said, warning, last fuel, last food, last water for 1,600 kilometers. Because
you hear those things, people stranded out in Australia and stuff, there's nothing nearby, and it's bananas what you're doing.
It's going to be epic.
So cool.
It's going to be epic. Yeah.
Yeah, look, if it doesn't scare you, it's definitely not worth doing. Jason, we cannot wish you well enough. We're definitely going to get you back on for part 2. You'll have a lot of time of not running and walking around, I'd say. So we'll try and nab you in probably the first week or 2 after this. But it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. More importantly, we're going to have you on the Wall of Fame.
Do you think he's earned it? Do you think he's earned it?
I think he's just about made it onto the Wall of Fame. But Jason, it has been a privilege. We're very aware we are taking up some of your hard-earned time, but it's been amazing having you on. We do wish you all the best, and we will put in the show notes and every other details, and we will share some of Jason's journey as it comes to it, so that people can stay involved and get involved. And I'm no doubt the whole country will be behind you, wishing you the best on this. It is an epic journey.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, and keep the podcast up. So you guys are doing a great job. It's really nice. Really good to see. Yeah.
Cheers, Jason. And that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Myself, Jason, and Eric. Take care.